To kick off this program, we're having lightning talks. As the name suggests, it's going to be very fast, or at least we hope so. I'll be inviting 4 experts who, over a period of 40 minutes, will try and explain what artificial intelligence, blockchain, innovation, and digitalization mean for the media industry. They'll be trying to answer the questions: why have these words become so popular? Are they justified, and how will they age? And to begin with, I'd like to invite the first speaker, Elena Abrusci. She is a senior research officer for the Human Rights Big Data and Technology Project at the Human Rights Center School of Law at the University of Essex. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So I have the very hard task to introduce you to AI in 10 minutes. The slide doesn't work. Oh, sorry. Okay, so to tell you about artificial intelligence in 10 minutes. But I have a very easy task to explain why it's a buzzword. I think it's a buzzword because we use it so much. We use AI every single day, mostly all the time. If we work in media, if we work in everything that deals with innovation and digitalization that my colleagues will talk about later, we use the term AI. Why do we use it so much? Because it's quite a cool word. Artificial intelligence, if we use it in the long version, is quite cool and buzzy, because artificial reminds us of something that is technological, is advanced, and intelligence reminds us of something that is smart, is reassuring, and is very close to us as a human being, because it's what is one of our features, being intelligent. And it's also a buzzword because we use it every day. Every time we open our phone, and we use most of our apps, we use an AI-powered system. Think, for example, of Netflix. When Netflix suggests you the next movie to watch because you really like certain kind of TV series of movie or genre, it's exactly AI system that does that. The same with Google Maps, that instead of providing you a long list in alphabetic order, maybe, of all the restaurants in Bonn, exactly suggests you the restaurant that you would like the most. And it's the same with LinkedIn, that suggests you to apply for your dreaming job. So AI can be very cool, and is a buzzword because it actually is already in our life quite pervasively, and is making our life easier and smoother. But then, what is artificial intelligence in practical terms? Well, I'm not a computer developer. I'm not a software developer, not a computer scientist. I'm a human rights lawyer. But we work a lot with AI. So when we approach AI, we define AI as a branch of computer science that focuses on making systems that act like they have a human intelligence. What does it mean, a human intelligence? Well, that can be quite tricky, and there are a lot of studies on that. But let's say that we have a set of algorithms that are informed by data, and on the basis of this data, they elaborate some output in a way that is what we would expect from a human being. So all the 3 elements that here are pretty important. So we have algorithms, so something that we code, and it's quite important how do we code that. But we inform with data that we call data set. And on the basis of this data set, the algorithm is able to make inferences, assessment, elaboration, and act and behave in a way that we would expect from a human being. A very nice example and analogy I really like is the one of the child. You think of an algorithm as a child, and depending on which, and data is the education that we give to the child. So according to the kind of education we give to the child will behave and act in his life. So if we provide very bad education and wrong education, the child will behave badly in the future. And we cannot blame so much the child, we have to blame quite well the education that we give him. And the output is also very important because it's a circle. So the output is not going to be something that just stay there, but will inform the future action and behave of the algorithm or the child in the child analogy. So it's something very powerful, and it's something that can be very useful, and can be very useful in the media development, for media development for sure, in many different ways. We heard already yesterday A lot of things about how AI can, for example, allow us to translate text into many different languages. Many different languages, local dialects, in a way that will allow us to reach communities that they were normally left out of the conversation. So adapting content not only from a language perspective, but also from a format perspective. Think of people with learning disabilities and how AI will allow us to transform an audio content into a text one or vice versa, and adapt the content to be able to be understood by different people, thus giving voice to marginalized community and allow those communities to be able to be part of the conversation, also by then contributing with producing content and increasing plurality of news and, as such, freedom of expression. And also fast and effective access to data and the auto-generated content that can be quite tricky, and you are the media expert, you will tell me later how tricky this can be, but also allows journalists to have a first draft of a news based on data, like an automated, elaborated first draft of an article that may allow a faster production of news and more plurality of news. However, AI also comes with some risks. And here I only highlight some of the risks in the media space. As we say, auto-generated content means that it's very easy to also falsify and alter a content, both as a news and as a video content. And the example of deepfake is one of these. And the spread of misinformation and disinformation online is definitely helped and eased by artificial intelligence through targeting and profiling, and the reason why we are in this filter bubble and echo chambers where we are bombarded with the same kind of information. That is an AI-powered algorithm that shows us only a certain kind of information based on our behavior online and our profile. But also think of AI when in content moderation, so algorithms that are very good as a gatekeeper for keeping hate speech out of the platforms. But sometimes, as we know, they fail, and sometimes while trying to keep hate speech out of platforms, they also do censorship and ban and close accounts that were actually only expressing some views with satire, for example. Algorithms are not able to spot satire in a text. So while we have an illusion of a free and democratic information space, thanks to AI, sometimes AI, if badly used, can actually produce the opposite and put in danger many different rights. Also the same freedom of expression and right to participate in public affairs that could benefit, as we saw in the previous slide. So the question is, can we have AI for good? Yes, we can. Because AI is a tool, so depending on how we use it, we can have it for good or have it for bad. And as a human rights lawyer, we advocate for a human rights-based approach to all the stages of AI, to the design, to the development, and to the use of AI. That means before employing AI, trying to understand how are we going to use it? Is there going to be a possible human rights impact on it? And of course, if we foresee a human rights adverse impact, we don't use AI. But also, we intervene at all the stages. So when we talk about data, ensuring diversified data to avoid biases and discrimination, and that the data we collect and we process respect the right to privacy of the users. When we write the algorithm and the code, we have to respect the principle of no harm on a human rights base, so the algorithm will not allow a human rights harm. And then at the output level, we have to put in place safeguards to respect human rights and to avoid harmful consequences to happen, and continuous monitoring this, because it's not enough to put good data, to write a nice algorithm, and then leave it going, because we need to continue monitoring. In addition to this, what is important and crucial is transparency. We need to ask transparency for whoever uses AI. So and also the other point that is crucial and where all of us should be involved is raising awareness. So we need to raise awareness with the user, with the people, about the amazing possibility and opportunities that AI poses to us, but also of the threats. So if we are aware of the threats, is when we are able to put in place all the safeguards, do all the system well, all the process well, and ensure that AI is actually used for good. Thank you very much. And if you want to know more about how AI can endanger human rights, and you go to on our website, there is a very lovely and funny video on human rights and artificial intelligence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elena. At the end of this, by the way, I'll be opening questions to the floor, so please keep them ready. What about blockchain? Well, Meier-Hahn works as an advisor for technology in international cooperation at the Deutsche Gesellschaft für Internationale Zusammenarbeit. That's GIZ in full. We never hear it said in full, right? But here she is telling us about blockchain. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. And I have to say, to begin with, I'm so happy that I'm in the buzzword section, because this means that I'm not in a fail fast and thoroughly section. Even though I will be speaking about blockchain technology. One word about the blockchain lab at GIZ, so to sort of situate me for you, is that we perceive of ourselves not as a driver of blockchain technology, but rather as an honest broker with regard to this technology. So I'll try to walk you through very basics of this emerging technology, and then look at a couple of use cases for blockchain in journalism, because to my mind, it only makes sense to talk very specifically, because the architecture of blockchain is so general that you need to look at the actual implementations. Let me bust a couple of myths about blockchain. Blockchain is not the one blockchain. Blockchain is a set of technologies that can have different shape. You have different blockchains, such as the Bitcoin blockchain, the Ethereum blockchain, as the better known ones. There are various blockchains. Everybody can invent a blockchain. It's really just an architecture. Blockchain is also not just Bitcoin, not only because it's not cryptocurrencies, even though we have a lot of push towards cryptocurrency development, and that's what blockchain probably is known for, but it's also not Bitcoin because Bitcoin is an application on blockchain. So it's important to keep that apart. Blockchain is also not a conventional database, although it has properties of a database, and that is because with conventional databases, you have the relationship between security and participants designed in a way that the more participants you have that can access a database, the more security will go down. However, for blockchain, it's the other way around. The more participants you have in the underlying network that maintains the blockchain, the better are the security properties and the robustness of the system. Oops. Also, blockchain is not just peer-to-peer, although peer-to-peer collaboration is part of blockchain. I will go into that in a bit. And I would say blockchain is not underrated, but certainly it's overhyped. So the tech behind blockchain, in very simple terms, very often it helps to visualize these systems in layered models. On the very bottom, you have the internet. Every blockchain is running on the internet, and this is specifically important in the development context, because in order to maintain a blockchain system, if you want to have live interaction, you need the internet as a given. So that is already a precondition that's not given everywhere, but also it's not needed for every kind of blockchain application. Then on the top, you see the applications. You have blockchain-based applications such as Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, but also regular applications that we know, and you wouldn't be able to distinguish as a user probably a blockchain-based application. So because these applications are also just using a database technology, you have a ledger, and the records are being added to that ledger. And that is a very basic property of blockchain, that you have an add-on only type of ledger. So you cannot delete any records that have previously been made. On top of that, this ledger is distributed on a peer-to-peer network, which acts to verify the records that are being added to that ledger, and also certain parts of that network also save save the records as well. So you have multiple instances of where the data is being saved, and you have a network that verifies the transactions. And these transactions are being secured cryptographically. That's the last part. And all these aspects are part of a blockchain system. So let's turn to journalism. Hopes were high that blockchain could serve to debunk misinformation, debunk fake news, and it's been circulated, and certainly we feel like, yeah, why? Well, isn't blockchain about verification and all this? But I would argue that blockchain, you have to keep in mind that blockchain does not allow you to test and to check for the accuracy of information. Not for the accuracy of the content, but only for the accuracy of the transaction itself. So the accuracy is not related to the meaningful layer of communication, I would say, but more to the technical layer. And if we look at journalistic startups or journalistic projects that try to use blockchain in this space nevertheless, because of course there's a reason for why we talk about blockchain and misinformation. We, for instance, can look at the News Provenance project, which has recently been started by the New York Times. We don't know much about this project yet. Of course, they have a website. I think they are also looking for funding, I believe. But let me just, as much as we know, what they do is that they sort of engage in whitelisting. So in the realm of fake news, misinformation, what we see often are the fact checkers who react once information is out to understand if it's truthful or if it's not truthful. Thank you. And the approach here would be different. Here you would have the originators of content who use blockchain to create a hash about that digital content, anchor that hash in the blockchain, and provide additional meta information about this piece of content, such as photos. And I think the News Provenance project is about to start with picture files, and they talk about new visual computer technology. And I believe that I'm guessing here that they might try to add sort of in a watermark-like fashion, add information, meta information to the pictures themselves so that they can travel with that information through the web. Another initiative in this realm is digital claim making in the context of digital assets. Here we have the Poet project. It's a similar idea, but the idea is also that you can prove your ownership of a digital asset, which of course allows you to monetize that asset in general. So will blockchain finance journalism? Cheers. Will blockchain help us solve the finance problem in journalism? Well, of course, it's complicated. We've been hearing about diversification of revenue sources yesterday a lot, and thanks to Rudolf Augstein Foundation, we have this slide which systemizes the different kinds of revenue streams. And without going all of them, on the bottom layer we see the alternative funding models that many of you are thinking about, I believe, such as the foundations, the patrons, the crowdfunding, which also changes your journalism as such, but also business models and ownership structures of media. And some, of course, get money in early stage funding as a very specific moment in your media development. You also do events. And then there's this unbundled sales paradigm. So digitization is all about unbundling, we hear, and that could also hold true for journalism. So we're talking here about micropayments. And what I've done here is that I've plotted the fee structure of, I would say, an incumbent digital payment provider, PayPal, the fee structure that they, I think, use for euro, oh, it's only 3 minutes, that they use for the euro, and I've plotted that against a blockchain-based micropayment service. Satoshi Pay from Berlin, German Axel Springer Verlag has invested in this venture. And what you see is that as long as the price is below €4.60, the price for an item, it's favorable to use this kind of fee structure. However, there are I would at least say three issues with this. One is that, of course, you have a chicken and egg problem. Publishers could use Satoshi Pay or other micropayment services, integrate that in their websites. But why would they if nobody knows how to pay with cryptocurrencies? If I'm a consumer, why would I engage and learn how to pay with a cryptocurrency if no publisher has integrated that? So there's a chicken and an egg problem. But it's very difficult to keep the cryptocurrencies stable. So you may have a very low transaction fee, but the value and the pricing structure may change constantly. So that is an issue as well. to come to an end slowly, will blockchain revamp newsrooms altogether? Will it bring different types of organization structures and save us at large? I believe that many may have heard of the startup Civil, which I'm not sure if you can still call it a startup. But so the Civil project really, I think they should be praised for being so courageous to start this kind of a project, because it's severely ambitious. But also what we see is that the goals are very high, and they sort of try to implement blockchain in many dimensions of what you can do with the blockchain. They want to use it, or they already use it, to sort of anchor the content itself and save that on the blockchain, so to create immutable and censorship-proof content possibilities to access content. But they also want to use blockchain and the cryptocurrency aspect of it to create a self-sustaining, they call it global marketplace for journalism. And they want to be free of ads, fake news, and outside influence. They also have created a journalism constitution that all newsrooms that want to onboard on the Civil platforms can have to adhere to. So Civil was, I think for them it was really difficult to convince of this kind of remodeling of journalism and of the ecosystem and the journalistic newsroom, which I think led to a failed ICO in 2018, so they weren't able to collect as much money as they wanted to. And recently, they are moving to new services, which I would perceive as sort of an add-on to the actual newsroom idea, which is adding sort of trust relationships and claims to the web content that they are producing. So I believe that they are trying to enlarge the business idea here towards trustworthy content and highlighting that. And that sort of reconnects again to the whitelisting initiatives. And I believe possibly a general movement in journalism that instead, or in addition to debunking fake news, what you want to try to do as a if you perceive yourself as a trustworthy news organization, is that you want to provide additional information, that you want to highlight that you want to communicate the work and the trustworthiness of your content. I want to end with this slide and with a download link on the bottom right of this. It's the link to our lab's website, and what you can see there, because we don't only look at journalism, is sort of a decision tree that if you as an entrepreneur, journalistic entrepreneur, may be wanting to think about using blockchain, you could go through that tree and sort of get a first feel if blockchain technology may be helpful for you to pursue your goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Uta. Time really flies when you're learning. Well, Josh LaPorte leads the European Journalism Center's media development team, and he has an interesting approach to innovation. Welcome, Josh.
Good morning, everybody. This is the time for the Lowtech presentation. So I was asked to do innovation, which can mean pretty much anything and nothing. So I'm going to talk about the way I interface with this word when I'm working. So why is it actually a buzzword? I mean, what's going on? This word innovation is nothing new. It's not like blockchain that I just learned a few weeks ago. I think actually the reason it's out there is because we're now dealing with we're trying to look for solutions to the crisis in media, and I think people need to start to be innovative about trying to find reasons to actually be able to deal with the crisis in media. So that automatically starts to bring up the idea of a tech and a digital solution for that. So I think that's what's part of it. I also think the other part of it is it's donor-driven. The donors have discovered this word, they're foisting it upon all of us, and now suddenly every report I write, I have to cross-cut and talk about the innovative elements of it. So that is I think, where the buzz is coming from. It's actually being donor-driven. What do I really think about this? Well, I think, it's a word that's in vogue, but what does it really mean? It can mean a little bit of everything, and it can actually mean a little bit of nothing. And I believe we're all being innovative anyway all these years. We just didn't call it innovation. I also think it's very vague. I think everybody has their own interpretation of innovation. I'm not sure you're going to even understand what my interpretation is after this presentation. But I think it's really important to understand what your local partners think about the word and what it means to them, especially when we're foisting this word onto them, and we have to make sure that that we're listening to what they believe that is. I also think it's extremely overused. I think it's just a byword for trying something new. But I think it's overused and it's starting to lose its meaning. Again, it's a top-down word that is kind of, we are now foisting on our partners in the global south. But finally, I do think there is something that is good out of it. I think another phrase for it is to be entrepreneurial. I think it's a way that we can be aspiring with all the work that we're doing, cross-cutting the word to mean just being, thinking out of the box and trying new things. What does it actually mean in terms of media development? Well, so I think the main thing is that it's looking at the issues we're dealing with in our projects in the Global South mostly, and looking at it as from a solutions-oriented approach. I think it's thinking out of the box, trying new things, letting our partners take risks, and again, being entrepreneurial. I also think it's behavioral. I think it's about instilling a culture of innovation inside our own organizations and the partners that we work with, developing behaviors and processes, and also looking at incremental change in positive directions. I think that's a quite innovative way of looking at project implementation. Finally, I think it's something that we can cross-cut across everything that we do, it's just something that we can embed on any kind of work. I don't think we need to get up and say, oh, let's be innovative today, or let's do something innovative. I think it just has to be part of our daily work without actually calling it innovation. Oh, that's okay. So I wanted to give you all some takeaways based just on my own experience of trying to be innovative. I think it's really important to empower your partners, your local partners, to listen to them. I think listening to our partners rather than constantly top-downing it, I think that's actually innovative because a lot of organizations don't do that. I'm constantly listening to, our best ideas come from our local partners. Don't micromanage, and again, try to understand what their definition of innovation means and always get their buy-in when you're starting to tell them, be innovative. I think, again, it's to nurture a culture of that. It's creative problem solving, and again, taking approaches that cross-cut the entire organization. I also think that it's something we need to talk to our own donors about. We need to have open discussions by what our donors mean when we have to fill out reports or applications. Why is your project innovative? Well, what do they actually want us? What do they want to hear from us? Usually it has something to do with tech, but I really don't think that that's the main answer to that. I also think that if you want to kind of get these real processes built into people's behaviors, you need to have long-term funding for that. I think these 6-month, 9-month projects where you have to have fast impact, you're never going to create a culture of innovation. So that's, I think, long-term funding, which everybody wants to get. I think it's very important to focus on that. Finally, I think you can get synergy. You have to listen to your partners, get them talking to each other. I think that's really, really innovative. You continuously get your partners sharing ideas. And to give you one great example of that, I think, is the way we've mainstreamed innovation, not knowing we've done it, through our reality journalism initiative. It's a project we run with 3 partners in 3 continents, in Armenia, Bolivia, and Kenya. We basically have a reality journalism TV show. It's a competition between university journalism schools, nationwide TV broadcasts across all these countries. It's really intense on field work, coaching, and mentoring. It's very industry-facing, which I think is innovative. We're actually helping students to get jobs in the industry. Our weekly audiences are now averaging over 5 million viewers, and our audience surveys are bringing us back some really interesting data about the fact that the shows are rebuilding trust and understanding of media with citizens. I can give you more information about these surveys. And finally, on the sustainability side of things, we're actually starting to get the TV networks to share ad revenues with our partners. So we're all in luck because season 3 of our show in Kenya, which is called Top Story, just premiered Monday night, and I would love to show you the promo. So if you could just show the video. I think I have 1 minute left. Yeah. It's 1 minute. It's worth the wait. In the meantime, you can see all my keywords that we've been innovative on. Oh, okay. So much for lightning. Right. Is it coming? It's a video too.
Defend our title, sababu tulishinda msimu uliopita.
Our quick thinking as a team will get us to the top.
A chance to represent your university on a visit to a prestigious international media company while enjoying the sandy beaches of Mombasa seems like a weekend getaway. But this is no vacation, and anything can happen.
Great audio, but guess what? Content. That was not the narrative.
On the most competitive TV show yet, we follow the contestants through the highs and lows of telling the top story.
Ni noma.
Tumechoka, tumebeat, tumezunguka. And then your class tunaenda kama tumechoka, tumebeat. It's where the assignment comes from.
Who will carry home the top story crown?
So, thank you very much. And you can watch Top Story. It's on NTV network every Monday night at 7:30, and you can watch it live. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was quite gripped by that trailer, and I'm curious who is going to take the crown. Our next speaker, as you'll see in the program, is Rachel Sibande, but the person who will come on stage has considerably much more facial hair than a Rachel should, and that's because, unfortunately, Rachel couldn't be here with us because of logistical problems. But Rishad Patel so kindly took on the task. He is the co-founder of Splice Media, and he will be explaining digitalization. Welcome.
I promise you I'm not Rachel. I'm trying very hard to be a Rachel. How exciting was that? So I'm waiting for my slides. Coming up. And not quite. No? Still Rachel. Coming? Excellent. Oh, so I'm supposed to be talking about digitalization. You guys are such an intelligent audience. I'm not going to pretend to explain this to you. Instead, I'm going to try to explain what we can do with this amazing thing, what the promise of digitalization is. A little bit about us. We really want to drive change. We support media startups in Asia. And we do this from an ecosystem-based approach. Media startups are our heroes. We're essentially two guys in Splice. Two guys who like pink, obviously, and green shoes. Alan is the co-founder. He's the other half of the organization who isn't here. Some of you have met him. He's the career journalist. I'm the product design guy. But I've made a living all my life working with journalists like you and creating products for people like you, which is my obsession. So let's get into some basics. This is going to be our highly opinionated view in 10 minutes, so bear with me. This is essentially how we define media. It's anything that grabs your attention, yeah, that uses content. And with that content, you're able to make decisions, you're able to entertain, educate, and so on. We really think that attention is the currency of digital media. But utility is the influence. So we mix those things up a little bit. And the reason we exist is to help you build something people need, to build for utility, and build something valuable enough to pay for. Let's talk about a mistake. We've all been in media. And legacy media companies make this assumption that this assumption that the internet audience is a mass audience, that this is one single faceless mass, and that we do this thing and we send it out there and it's going to be fine. You know, we know that that's not necessarily how it works. So the internet, the promise of digitalization, and you know, is something else, right? It allows us to reach very specific, very engaged, interested communities, you know, with names and faces and interests, you know. I love these little things. So we're moving. There's a shift, obviously. There's a shift from this big broadcast thing to this narrowcast, you know. These conversations, they're not one way. We're not, you know, they're two-way conversations. And it has to do with respect. We're coming to the end of this, you know, gatekeeper situation where we're this top-down, you know, we have media has a monopoly on this conversation, on this one-way conversation. And instead, we're trying to move to a sort of more respectful two-way chat. Why not? Now, here's an example. By no means am I endorsing Facebook, but I just find this curious. Here's a partial list of how Facebook uses targeting, right? You guys know the targeting, right? I mean, this is a partial list. Let's blow it up a little bit. Just moms. I mean, who knew, right? Grade school, high school, preschool, new mom, soccer mom, stay at home, trendy mom, green mom. I mean, this is a real thing. Now imagine, what if I told you each one of these was a media company? Literally, each one of these. So the challenge and the opportunity is how do we figure out how these audiences are wasting their time? What are they doing while waiting for the elevator? How are they discovering this stuff? The intent is the same, right? We still want to be informed and educated. We want to be inspired. So here are some what ifs. What if it was impact and influence and not page views? What if we didn't confuse scale with mass audiences, but the number of small, little, tiny audiences we had, the number of small conversations we had? What if we stopped defaulting to articles as the atom of news? And what if this was our competition? In fact, in their earnings report, you guys might have read this. Who plays Fortnite? Anybody plays Fortnite in the room? Saad, you're the man. I mean, they said they compete more with Fortnite than with HBO. Right, who do you think their other big competition was? It was sleep. They don't consider HBO. So we're in competition with everything else, right? Not with each other. So let's be really sort of, you know, prescriptive again, opinionated, horrible. Everything digital is fungible. And everything digital will be commoditized. I have 3 really pessimistic, miserable slides for you. Mary Meeker, big internet sage, she said, here's how many people use platforms more than once a day. All right, the usual suspects are on top. But how many of these used these platforms for news? There's the algorithm change in the middle. You guys are all uncomfortably familiar with that. And here's the worst one. Here's the kick in the guts. If you could have one thing for the next 12 months, this is from the Reuters Institute Digital News report that they published a little earlier this year, which would you choose? And 7% chose online news. Fickle audiences. But hey, we're optimists. We're optimists in pink. We really are. We're in a golden age of media. I have 6 reasons for you. You have everything to create, publish, amplify, measure, all of it right here on your phone. You're like publishing companies all in this room right now. And it's all for free. Pretty much all for free. You have all these networks, than ever before. We have access to knowledge. I'm accessing all of your knowledge right here. And there's a media startup opportunity for every single interest, right? Remember this list? These are all media startups, all of these audiences, every single one of them, every single mom. You can hire anybody out there, right? You can access them. And you can learn what you like. I mean, look at that list, all these tools out there. It's kind of amazing. So how do you build this successful media product, right? I'm a product guy. This is how I work with you guys. This is how you do it, I guess, right? You give people what they want. Sorry, making really small, subtle point there. Some quick case studies. Let's rattle through these. Am I okay for time? Thank you. So this whole disruption we keep talking about, right? Did Netflix really disrupt Blockbuster, or did they disrupt themselves? Late fees, There's Uber, the famous, But it wasn't about disruption. It wasn't about killing the competition. It was about, finding a niche and giving consumers what they needed. I need to get to a place. I need the driver to be able to take me there without arguing. And I need to be able to get change. Simple, make it easy, right? Apple and the music industry. Suddenly, as a consumer, I wanted to buy individual songs. Amazon, I wanted to feed my consumer habit instantly. And Airbnb and hotels, right? It wasn't about killing the hotel industry. That's not how they started out. They didn't say, let's disrupt something. It was, let's give the consumer, let's listen to what they're saying and give them some options. Let's respect them. Let's have this two-way conversation. Give them what they want. And how do you do that? You listen, right? You listen. It's not the tech disruption. That's not what it's about. Here's the danger. This is the danger to our industry. We're failing to give people what they want. At best, we're failing to listen or to engage in conversations with these specific people, not 18 to 35 people who live in Bonn. That's not a person. That's not a soccer mom. How do you listen to people? It's out there. You just have to listen. And that's really the end of my talk. Sign up, go to our website, come to Splice Beta, and let us help you listen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just stay where you are. Yeah. Thank you so much, Rishad. It's unbelievable that you came up with that at the drop of a hat. So I'd like to invite the rest of the speakers so we can have an opportunity to ask them questions from the floor. Any questions? Yes, we'll take 3 at a time. Gentleman at the back, lady at the front.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Alexander Ivanovitch, Rogue Agency for Open Culture in Berlin, and I actually have just a general comment on this topic. buzzwords. And it goes maybe more into the term artificial intelligence. I find it very problematic that a term that has a long culture-historical tradition turns into buzzwords. I think why is it so? Because it's we feel the immediate effect. It's a technological hype, and especially it turns into a business model, so a money-driven use. So again, the idea, the desire for AI, you can find even in the ancient Greece. So when artificial intelligence is based on mere technological use, I have this feeling that this world is going into what we could call dataism. And so I think it's an interdisciplinary task that we think about why actually such terms are turning into buzzwords and the consequences and effects in its social and cultural dimensions. Thank you.
The lady at the front had a question.
Thank you for a set of really provocative presentations. My question is for Rashad at Splice. And I'm really struck by the two of your slides. One is you say we have to give people what they want and the kind of product development side. But the other slide was from the Reuters Institute where you flashed the 3 data points. 7% want news. The rest want Netflix and streaming. How do you just, juxtapose that in the context of this conference, where many people are here to talk about quality media, public interest media? Maybe people don't want media in the public interest. So then what becomes of the public sphere and our democracy?
And we'll take one final one. Yep.
I'd like to follow up exactly at this point, because I think what you're saying is, Airbnb is giving the people what they want, but Airbnb is also taking things away from people what they need, because they're disrupting the market for housing, and suddenly there is no housing because you can make more money from your apartment by renting it out to tourists than to have a family live there, but the family needs something too. So it is disruptive, and it's not only giving people what they want, but it's also taking away. And that goes to the issue of public goods. A lot of times people don't want to pay for what they need, but they only pay for what they want. And the worst example is the climate crisis. We do not factor in, the prices do not factor in what the use of fossil fuels means with incredible costs for everyone on the planet. And I don't see your model featuring that in any way.
Let's begin with Rishad then.
Thanks for those questions. Those were great comments. I think I have a number of things to say about that. I don't think we're necessarily the arbiters of what people need. I think we can make informed decisions about those things. We're in a place where we have this incredible power in the media. You're able to offer up options. We're able to inform. We're able to help people make decisions. Mine is not a singular point of view. It's one side of the argument, absolutely. By showing that these weren't necessarily tech disruptions, but just a bunch of people who wandered into the marketplace and said, we see a gap here, here's where we can make a difference, here's where we can serve a particular need. I think that's valid, and I think it shows relevance. Are these, I mean, look at Uber. Look at how these things are. In my point about these not being tech disruptions, I missed the point about these not necessarily being, these things also disrupting our lives, right? There is always a second and third and fourth and 10th side to that discussion. And I think it's completely valid, absolutely. You raise a point about climate change. Is this cute and sexy and instantly consumable. No, it isn't. It's an incredibly difficult issue to grapple with, and I think it's about time that we started to give people what they wanted in the ways that perhaps Greta Thunberg is doing. She's making it relevant and she's making it valid, and she is in fact underlining what an issue that people want to address. Maybe it's the form, I don't know.
And the second part of the question with regard to how media development plays in all this.
Right. No, I totally, I think again that we're in a position to listen. I loved what Ivan Siegel said the first day, is that we have privileged positions in which to start saying things. We have, it's about the speaker. And I think, to illustrate this point right here, it's about time that we sat back as the media industry and started to listen. And I think that's where media development begins from, right? It begins by listening.
Okay, and I'd like Elena to perhaps comment on the statement that was made earlier.
I think it was really, really interesting point, and I agree. I agree that artificial intelligence is not new per se, but it's becoming a buzzword also related to what Jason was saying, is because, donors usually ask for it. Like when you write a grant and you ask for funds, if you say that you're using AI, you actually, it's appealing. Like that's why lots of us put like on our Twitter the description, we write AI. Why? Because AI is cool. It's something that we recognize that something that is innovative is that we are up to the time, and we are keeping up high our standards of technological development. So and the importance of data, yes. What we are in an age of data. Big data is what is making AI so relevant and important. So yeah, I fully agree with your point.
Let's take a couple more questions, please.
Maybe just a thought to follow up on the discussion on the listening. I think listening is a very general thing, and I think we have to be very strategic about listening. In human-centered design, it's all about, I think we always have this quote of Henry Ford, says if we asked people what they wanted, it was faster horses. So I think the art of media development, should become more this strategic listening process, in which, of course, at some point, we also come in with suggestions and innovations that need to be then again listened to and know the feedback being taken seriously. And I think this process will then maybe help us produce media products that actually, are wanted. But it's not only by passive listening that we will achieve this.
Okay, Rishad, strategic listening. How do you feel about that?
I think what you just described sounds like a conversation. And I completely agree. A good conversation, well, let's look at what a terrible conversation is. It's somebody just, bombarding you with dogma, and then every time you raise a point, I go, no, but. But I think strategic listening is what we in the regular world would call a really good conversation, where you're able to, rather than wait for somebody to finish talking before you can say what you want to say, you sit there and you take it on board. And by the way, Henry Ford, if I asked them what they wanted, they would say faster horses. I think maybe it's our job to interpret that, perhaps strategically, but empathically. I think people want faster horses. What can we do with that? And I think there was an interpretation. He tested an assumption, and it seems to have worked out. So I think perhaps that's where I completely 100% agree with you. It's a conversation, and it's ongoing. It's never perfect.
Okay, and in the spirit of ongoing conversations, can we have more questions, please?
My name is Saad from Singapore. I just wanted to ask a blockchain question. I am a technologist and a digital native sympathizer, what you want to call me. But I just wanted to counterpoint what Rishad said about disruption. And thank you for dispelling that. The idea of disruption is something that I think was created to try and get more stakeholders to invest into startups. It wasn't actually a disruption. We've used that as a sort of buzzword, as a label to try and get more people excited about it. So my question, Dr. Uta, is whether this is now something that blockchain, is that now the new disruption?
You mean disruption in the terms that you just defined it as a vehicle?
Yeah, is it being used as a label to just sort of like get funding and get things off the ground? And is that being misused?
Misused? I mean, that implies that there's a correct use, right? I do think, obviously, that a lot of capital has been going into blockchain, and as long as it served as this buzzword, as a positive buzzword, but I also, and this is really more a gut feeling than that I have the right research at my hand now, but I also feel like that there was this inclination to associate positive aspects with blockchain, and a lot of delusion has happened there as well, and people are coming to their senses. But so I wouldn't be so judgmental about it in this case, but I'd rather see, for instance, also our role in looking sincerely at what's new in this type of technology. And as every technology, really, I mean, it's good. I mean, everybody knows this sentence: is technology good? No, it's neither good nor bad, nor is it neutral. And we need to look at technologies in just this way, understand the architectures that they bring, the digital architectures, and the type of governance structures that these architectures either afford, facilitate, or necessitate. And for blockchain, we now understand really the properties that those systems have, and it's important to explain those. I don't really care so much about this hype discussion. I just don't find it interesting. But we try to contribute to the discussion of blockchain beyond fintech, and there I think there's a lot to explore.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got time for one more question, I believe. Oh, don't be too quick to put your hands up, guys.
Hi, my name is Lutz Kinkel from the ECPMF in Leipzig. I also have a question to Rashid. You said give the people what they want. This might be a good business model. Are there any ethical limitations to what you say? I mean, people might want ressentiment, people might want prejudices, people might want narratives. I mean, we could give them that and we could make money out of that, but this is certainly, or hopefully not, what you mean.
No, it's not. Of course, and the longer answer is there are ethical underpinnings to pretty much every decision and every conversation we have, of course. And any one of these things could be interpreted to, the absolute extreme of that pendulum, and it's up to us to actually interpret it responsibly. We take the responsibility in the media to be able to interpret it. But as with everything else, it's all open to interpretation. So my point, yes, there has to be an ethical underpinning to all of it, every single bit of it. Sure, I agree.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, please help me give a warm round of applause to Josh, Uta, Elena, and Rishad. Thank you.